In the analysis of multiple universes, multiple timelines, even the slightest decision is important, for a fraction in the space-time continuum is powerful enough to create multiple realities. These realities exist side by side, eventually coming together to be known as the multiverse. Only one being is capable of seeing all of these alternate universes and understanding their complexities, and that being remains I, the Watcher. The path to redemption is a long and convoluted journey, for in the original reality, I had witnessed a man go through that journey, from a jealous brother to one who actually sacrificed himself for the good of the world. Loki proved himself to be indeed one of a kind. After his defeat, his maiden attempted to send forth his armies to other worlds using the Bifrost Gate. Loki fell through a wormhole, finding himself in the sanctuary, where he met with rather unpleasant company. This story does not take that turn. For this story, the wormhole took Loki somewhere far away, somewhere where the fate of the world inevitably rested on his shoulders. Loki coughed as Mjolnir rested on his chest. As he was unworthy to move the weapon, he found himself rather incapacitated. However, he felt a pang of gladness as his brother Thor seemed to be in a fix. The Bifrost was wide open, and Loki's intentions to bring forth his armies to attack other realms seemed to be succeeding. Right now, it would have taken only a miracle to stop his genius plan, Loki thought. Little did he know that it would require a sacrifice, one he thought Thor would be unwilling to pay. To his greatest surprise, he felt Mjolnir leave him and enter Thor's palms. Thor began to hit the gate with all of the amount of energy, and Loki knew that Thor did not intend to scratch the gate, he intended to destroy it. Loki screamed out as Thor's foolishness reminding him that he would never be able to see Jane again if he went ahead to destroy the Bifrost. However, from the look of things, Thor had already ran that possibility in his head, and he had accepted it. It was evident that he was willing to lose Jane Foster, because it was the right thing to do. Loki couldn't let that happen. He couldn't let his brilliant plans scatter. He immediately carried up his weapon and charged, hoping that he would incapacitate Thor, preventing him from committing such madness. However, he was too late. A huge force pushed him and Thor backwards as the Bifrost shattered into a million bits. As they struggled in the air, Loki suddenly realized that he was hanging in midair. Turning, he realized that Thor was also hanging in midair. Standing before them was their father, Odin, who looked healthy as opposed to the last time Loki saw him. Had the destruction of the Bifrost woken him up from his slumber? As Odin attempted to help him up, Loki stared into his father's eyes. He could not control his mouth, which began to blab out all of his efforts were for Odin. However, he was not heartbroken to receive a dismiss no from Odin. Apparently, whatever he did was not recognizable at all and deserved to be punished. With a sign, Loki knew that he would never be better than Thor. With a smile, he let go of his weapon, ignoring Thor's screams as he fell into the blackness of the abyss. When Loki opened his eyes, he was surprised to find himself in a rather warm environment. He had expected turmoil and possible torment, but here he was, in an Asian-inspired temple. He stood up, realizing that a woman had stepped into the room. She was bald and kept a stern expression. Loki wondered if his magic was still intact. He would be able to use his illusions to escape from her sight, omitting her along the way if possible. The woman chuckled and informed him that he would be wise if he refrained from using his illusionist abilities, as she would just see through them. Loki was shocked. He asked the woman if she knew who he was. She responded by telling him that she was well aware of his identity, calling him by his first name. She mentioned that he knew he was a god and he did not belong in their world. However, who was she to question the devices of nature? Loki looked around and asked her where he was and who she was. The woman identified herself as the Ancient One, responsible for teaching diversing people in the mystic arts. She noted that Loki had fallen into a wormhole, and which teleported him here in Kamar Taj. The Ancient One's voice dimmed as she noted that Loki's teleportation through the wormhole had some unexpected consequences. It was then Loki realized that he could not feel his connection to his godlike magic, or of course he had to lose the one thing that made him feel special. The Ancient One assured him that there was no wound which could not be mended. However, she had fulfilled her scarred duties and helped a man in need. However, she advised him to find his own path, one devoid of his past, and this, Loki had no clue where to begin. Loki walked out of the chambers where the Ancient One resided, staring in awe as several men and women practiced the mystic arts and a few meters away from him. The energy they manipulated fascinated him. It was a form of magic he did not understand. However, he was willing to learn it. He did not realize when a man had stood beside him. The man spoke, drawing Loki out of his thoughts. Loki responded by pinning the man to the wall immediately. However, the man did not react. Loki immediately realized his actions were uncalled for and retreated, bowing his head in shame. Without his magic, he did not even have the dignity in his attacks. He was a god, but now he was a sport before mere mortals. The man introduced himself as Baron Mordo and noted that he had seen men like Loki before. When Loki asked what description best suited these men, Mordo admitted that these men who had their lives taken away from them. Loki sighed as he knew that he was the perfect match for Mordo's description. He was a god, but now he was a mere mortal, and he would not be held in the esteem he once cringed to. However, Mordo continued. Mordo noted that these people, despite losing the best part of their lives, never stopped living. They pushed forward and ensured that they were not beaten down by these circumstances. Many of them have found solitary in their magic of the mystic arts. They had moved on. Loki smiled. He had no godlike magic anymore, but he could manipulate the mystic arts. It would be amazing to learn the arts of magic. This way, he would not worry about his family. Years passed and Loki became adept in the new arts, growing to the point of being recognized by the Ancient One herself. During his time studying the mystic arts, he also became good friends with Wong and Mordo. He had the life he wanted, or so he thought. A man like Loki was hungry for more power and skill, and just as it had to happen in the other reality, Loki knew that obtaining this power, he would have to go to the books. Thus, he visited the library on a certain day to get the books, only to be informed by Wong that he wasn't ready to that extent. Loki cursed and returned to his room. However, no one was going to tell the trickster god how to live his life. For the next few weeks, Loki practiced the arts of astral projection, using his new gift to watch his family in Asgard and study the books in the library as he stole them quite often. Loki dodged the punch, a feat that surprised Mordo. Mordo attempted to attack the left side of Loki, but Loki quickly defended himself with a swift twirl. Mordo was on the floor. Mordo stood up and complimented Loki's skill set. Loki informed Mordo that he was a former god and he was a part of the warriors' family. Learning the ways of the warriors was a normal thing for him, especially as he spent most of his life trying to prove himself to his father. Mordo asked Loki if he missed his godlike powers. Loki admitted that he missed his godlike abilities, if only there was a way to get them back. Mordo smiled and told Loki that he needed to realize that his powers may not eventually return. Loki heaved a sigh and reluctantly agreed that it was mostly the case. A thought crossed Loki's mind and he proceeded to question Mordo. He asked what age was the Ancient One, as it seemed she had been existing for the foundation of the Sanctum. Mordo responded that he did not know and he was not concerned with such information. Loki chuckled and noted that many Asgardians had foolishly and blindly followed their leaders in the past, and they ended up losing their lives. Also, as a former god of deception, he knew a thing or two about trickery. Mordo frowned and cautioned Loki never to question the Ancient One. If he did, he would end up making a foolish mistake eventually. Loki nodded, however deep down he knew he intended to get to the bottom of this. As soon as Loki entered the library, he smiled, realizing that Wong was no longer around. He entered the library and approached a certain section. He took up the Book of Cagliostro and began to read it. As soon as he read a part, he decided to use the Eye of Agamotto. As he utilized the green gem, he realized that he could recreate an already eaten power. He was shocked to discover this sort of power. Then he immediately had thought he could contrast hard and began to chant. Then he heard a noise. In a few seconds, Mordo and Wong stepped into the room. Mordo commented that he thought he heard someone in here. Wong noted that he thought so too. Together, they stepped out of the room. It was at that moment that Loki realized that they had not seen him. And that was only possible if his illusionist powers were activated, if his godlike abilities were back. He was using the Eye of Agamotto to bring back his godlike abilities. The Ancient One sat on the floor with her eyes closed. As soon as Loki stepped into the room, she opened her eyes, commenting on his lack of stealth. Loki noted that he had not needed to be stealthy. Loki also said that he needed to have a very serious talk with the Ancient One. The Ancient One gestured for him to continue, and Loki admitted that he has stayed in the Kamar Taj to ensure he forgot about his past, especially his lost magic. He had wanted to follow Mordo's advice and move on. However, he could not move on no matter how hard he tried. The Ancient One asked Loki how he intended to reconcile everything now, and Loki noted that he couldn't move on if he found that someone hadn't moved on yet. When the Ancient One inquired on what he meant by that statement, Loki noted that he knew the Ancient One was using the Eye of Agamotto to keep herself alive, bending the rules of time, and she swore to protect. Apparently, she was a cheat like him. The Ancient One immediately cautioned him, informing him that she was nothing like him. Everything she had done was for a purpose. However, she did not expect him to actually understand. Loki nodded and admitted that he would not understand. Loki immediately asked how the Ancient One was going to explain her heinous actions to her followers. The Ancient One immediately noted that they didn't need to know, and Loki needed to do her a favor of not telling them. Loki admitted that he wouldn't tell them anything. However, he would need her to support him in raising an army and returning to Asgard. Paying Thor a rather painful visit, the Ancient One immediately said she would not do so, and Loki smiled, admitting that he knew she would give this reply. That is why he had contacted someone dangerous. Loki, dressed in his armor, stood at the balcony, watching Caecilius attack the Sanctum. They intended to bring Dormammu to Earth, and Loki had promised them that he would help them activate this goal. From what he could gather, Daniel Drummer, Mordo, and Wong were already dead in their battle against Caecilius. The Ancient One came and stood by him. Being horrified by what he had done, she immediately asked him if he knew the consequences of bringing Dormammu to Earth. Loki smiled and said that he knew the consequences, which was why he would not let Dormammu come to Earth. With the Eye of Agamotto, he had a specific plan to put that into action. However, he had not needed a distraction to carry out his remaining plan. The Ancient One noted that Loki was better than this, and that he had proven in years of training there was no need for him to abandon all that he had learned for more power. Loki bent his face and said that he was done living for people now. He was going to be the ruler he knew he was. And with that, Loki immediately plunged a sword into the Ancient One's heart. He whispered that the people would believe Caecilius was responsible. The truth would die with her. Thor sat in his bedchambers, his eyes looking outside his window. He could not believe that he still missed Loki. For years now, he had searched for his brother, but had found nothing. He wondered if Loki was alright, or dead. Loki had committed a lot of sins, but he was still his brother. Little did he know that Loki was monitoring him. Astral projection, of course. As Loki ended the projection, he signaled to a follower to bring him the Cloak of Levitation. It was time for the Sorcerer Supreme to go to war. And that is going to be, what if Loki became the Sorcerer Supreme in this wicked, sadistic Marvel's What If fanfiction? Now, this particular story was requested by a certain subscriber, and I can't remember who it was, but I can't thank you enough, because when I heard this idea, I was like, I really want to do this because it's something new, and seeing Loki become the Sorcerer Supreme in such a vicious way really gives the MCU a different perspective in this alternate reality. So I'm so happy that I took the time to really write this and really nail it down to what I want to do. Now, I think we can go into a part 2 with this particular story now, because Avengers 2012 doesn't happen in this universe, so we can really expand on Earth and really talk about what would change in this universe. So that being said, thank you for tuning in, and if you guys do enjoy these Marvel's What If videos, do make sure to subscribe, like, share, and turn your notifications on so you and your friends are all up to date with the latest content. That being said, have a fantastic day.